Now the latest from ITV News Meridian with Sangeeta Barbara and Fred Dinage.
Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. Holding on, Labour and Liberal Democrats celebrate their local election triumphs. Did they make enough inroads in the Tory heartland of the south?
If anything, we're losing votes. That's an absolute disaster, and I think that can only be because of the inept leadership of the Labour Party.
Dancing for joy, euphoria for the winning parties, what happened where you are. Plus, who is your new Police and Crime Commissioner?
Also tonight, a court's told how the man accused of stabbing a grandfather to death in a roadside attack thought he was going to hurt him.
And they're just one win away from the Premier League, but will it be top-flight football for the Seagulls in their biggest game of the season? Good evening. Everyone had something to celebrate overnight in this year's local elections.
Yes, Labour held on to power in Southampton and Crawley, despite predictions they would lose. The Conservatives held on to all of their councils here in the south, and the Liberal Democrats remained dominant in Eastleigh.
But tonight, some Labour members say their party should have done much better. The leader of the Labour group at Portsmouth Council says the reason they didn't is Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, these elections were for a third or a half of local council seats, not full council. So Labour holds Southampton with a slim majority of 25 councillors, winning 12 seats on the night. The Conservatives have 19 seats.
Labour now has 19 councillors in Crawley, gaining one extra seat. The Conservatives have 17.
The Lib Dems in Eastleigh, 38 seats overall against the Tories 6. The Lib Dems held 12 and gained one extra. The Conservative Party -2.
Well, the Conservatives remain the largest party in Portsmouth with 19 seats, but fall short of a majority with no overall control. Tory leader, Councillor Donna Jones, said her minority administration will continue to work with UKIP and the Labour Party.
With the full story here in the south, Rachel Hepworth.
Labour celebrations in Southampton, or was it simply relief?
We haven't slept for 24 hours.
Many analysts had said the Conservatives could gain power here, but Labour held on, saving Jeremy Corbyn's blushes.
You're telling me it was a surprise. Yes, I'm still the leader of Southampton City Council, even though I think the media were expecting me not to be, and they came here to bury Caesar, and now they have to praise him. So.
But it was hardly a glowing endorsement of the main opposition party. In Portsmouth, which remained in no overall control, there were scathing attacks on the Labour leadership from their own supporters.
We as the main opposition party in places like Portsmouth are not picking up seats. If anything, we're losing votes. That's an absolute disaster, and I think that can only be because of the inept leadership of the Labour Party.
The Conservatives, meanwhile, gained a seat here, but continue to share power with the Liberal Democrats.
Yes, I am disappointed that we're just a couple of seats short of that overall majority. We had the prospect to become the only Conservative majority-controlled city in the United Kingdom, but I'm not giving up hope.
Labour defended their wafer-thin majority in Crawley, even picking up a seat from the Conservatives. Muted celebrations here as the party focused on local rather than national issues.
We had a very strong local message about delivering for the town, and people have given us their trust, and we intend to pay that back.
We should have taken it. I would certainly concede that, but I think it's a bit of a cold victory for Labour because they should be doing an awful lot better at this stage, a year into a majority Conservative government.
So what of the Liberal Democrats? Well, they retained control of their Eastleigh stronghold, fighting back, says their leader.
Fantastic results. I think we know the Tories were saying in advance of this election they were going to win at least 2 seats off the Liberal Democrats, and privately we think their hopes were higher than that, and yet we've actually seen increased majorities as well.
Both Labour and the Conservatives made small gains in Basingstoke and Dean, with the Tories retaining overall control. For them, the low turnouts, ranging from 42% in Wokingham to just 25% in Southampton, not a huge surprise.
I think people are probably saving themselves for the referendum in a few weeks' time, and I think to a certain extent there's a bit of election fatigue.
One of those nights then when all the parties claim partial victory while privately breathing sighs of relief. Rachel Hepworth for ITV News.
And just to confirm, in Eastleigh, the Conservatives have 2 seats. Well, let's look at the rest of the results now by county. As we've just seen, in Hampshire, Basingstoke remains Conservative, despite Labour gaining 2 seats. Fareham and Gosport also stay blue. Winchester, by the way, has not started counting the votes. That's happening tomorrow.
The Tories also remain the biggest party in heart, but with no overall control. Rushmore remains Conservative.
In West Sussex, Ada remains in Conservative control, as does neighbouring Worthing, with the Tories taking seats from the Lib Dems. They now have 32 out of 37 seats.
And in Dorset, the Green Party has won its first seat on Weymouth and Portland Borough Council. No party is in overall control, but the Tories are the largest group.
Well, all the results and individual reports on specific towns and cities can be found on our website. Just go to itv.com/Meridian, plus, of course, any developments overnight.
Well as the local government elections, there was voting too for the police and crime commissioners, and here that's Hampshire, Dorset, Wiltshire, Sussex and Surrey.
So did the current PCCs who were re-standing secure the votes and their jobs? Well, here's Mary Stanley.
Super Thursday became Frantic Friday. Just hours after the local council election in Southampton, counting started again for the Police and Crime Commissioner. A shock result in Hampshire saw independent Simon Hayes lose his role, with the count continuing for his replacement. In Wiltshire, Angus Macpherson will continue his role as PCC, with almost twice as many votes as Labour's Kevin Small, his nearest challenger. The Tory received almost half the votes, with a total of 69,000 first and second preferences. He wants to continue working with other local organisations in the fight against crime.
I think we need to build on the relationships we've made with local authorities, with mental health, and we need to work closer with local authorities around child sexual exploitation, just to take one emerging crime.
Martin Underhill was re-elected in Dorset. In his last term, the former detective became the first PCC nationally to formally introduce the charity Victim Support to help victims in his area. The Independent took almost 67,000 votes, despite fears the Tory candidate could take his job.
You can't ever be complacent in Dorset. It's a very big Conservative area, and I was worried. I didn't know if the electorate would follow me twice, and they did. I've increased my majority, and the turnout has increased, so that's fantastic news. But I was a very worried man this morning, yeah.
This is only the second police commissioner election. Their role to prioritise services and hold their force to account has been a controversial one.
The turnout here was slightly higher than this time 4 years ago, but still only 22% in Dorset, 24% in Wiltshire and 29% in Hampshire. Perhaps the value of this role has yet to be proven, or perhaps as a nation we're election weary, which doesn't bode well as the polls open again next month. Mary Stanley, ITV News, Southampton.
And Phil Hornby will have the Hampshire, Surrey and Sussex results later in our programme. In other news, a man's appeared in court charged with the manslaughter of a woman in Bournemouth. 44-year-old Julie Cook was found with serious head injuries at an apartment block on Clarence Park Road on Tuesday. She died the following day. 36-year-old Daniel Bragg of Bournemouth was remanded in custody.
A woman is being questioned by police on suspicion of perverting the course of justice after a man was found murdered in Southampton. Michael Freshwater's body was found at a house in Westridge Road on Friday. He died from a stab wound. 7 other people have already been arrested in connection with his murder.
An elderly woman was killed in a fire caused by a cigarette from a faulty batch. Barbara Rankilaw died in the blaze at her home in Bournemouth in November last year. The inquest into her death found the cigarettes were cheap and did not meet current EU standards.
Court has heard how the man accused of murdering a pensioner in a roadside attack thought his victim was trying to hurt him.
79-year-old Donald Locke was stabbed 39 times after he collided with Matthew Daly's car on the A24 near Findon last July.
He denies murder. Well, for more, let's cross to Louise Lewis in our newsroom. Louise, what else was said in court today?
Well, Sangeeta, for the second day in a row, Don Locke's widow left the courtroom as details of what happened in the attack was shared with the jury. 35-year-old Matthew Daly is accused of stabbing Mr Locke 39 times, but had told a psychiatrist he believed the third knife wound delivered the fatal blow. When asked why he did not simply drive away after the collision, he told Dr Johns, "I was trapped in the moment and I did not see that as an option." The jury was also told how investigations into the mental health of the defendant also revealed he heard voices in his head. Well, in 2012, he had gone to a man's home with a hammer and smashed a car window. Then in August 2013, when he was on a bus, he said someone outside insulted him by calling him names. So he left the bus and assaulted him. Psychiatrist Dr Johns assessed Mr Daly as having Asperger's syndrome in an early report, but in a later one he concluded that it was highly likely that Daly had been suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. The 35-year-old denies murder and the trial continues.
Louise, thank you.
More news. The man jailed for life for the murder of Hampshire grandmother Georgina Edmonds has applied for leave to appeal against his conviction. 37-year-old Matthew Hamlin from Bishopstoke was convicted after a second trial when new DNA evidence came to light. He tortured Mrs Edmonds for her bank details before hitting her over the head with a marble rolling pin at her country cottage in Brambridge in 2008.
Road closures are in place in Bournemouth as work is carried out to clear last month's landslip. East Overcliff Drive is shut indefinitely after parts of the cliff broke away 2 weeks ago. Traffic diversions are in place at the junction of Manor Road and at the Russell Coates Road junction with Bath Road.
Plans to redevelop a 1960s housing estate in Southampton have been approved. The City Council's granted planning permission for the first phase at Townhill Park. 400 council-owned flats will be demolished and 675 new homes built. Work due to start next year.
You're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Thank you very much. And coming up,
The Who, Cream, who will be the stars of this year's 50th Brighton Festival.
and you can follow us 24 hours a day at itv.com/Meridian. You can call us, the number's on the screen now, or get in touch via Facebook or Twitter.
Sport now, Sarah Gom. Sarah, one big question. Can Brighton do it?
Oh, we hope so, don't we, Fred?
We
really do. After 45 games and a famous unbeaten run, tomorrow Brighton and Hove Albion face Middlesbrough at the Riverside Stadium, where the winner really will take it all. Victory for either side will seal football's most lucrative prize, a place in the Premier League. And the Seagulls are hoping they can follow in the footsteps of the week's other famous underdogs.
ITV Meridian Sport Report, sponsored by WeWantAnyCar.com, the Cash for Cars website.
Wake up, wake up.
One footballing fairy tale in the Midlands has dominated headlines this week, and for supporters on the south coast, there's hope another is about to come true. The race for promotion to the top flight and a windfall from TV deals worth more than £100 million couldn't be tighter. Tomorrow, Brighton face a Middlesbrough side level on points and above them on a goal difference of just 2.
The league doesn't lie. They are a quality side with quality players, and on any way that we want to get a result on Saturday, we're going to have to play well enough to do that.
Seagulls chief executive Paul Barber joined Brighton in 2012, just months after their historic move to the Amex Stadium. Life there all the more appreciated by fans who'd seen their club forced to sell their home ground, spend 2 seasons at Gillingham's Priestfield and a further 10 years at the Withdean Stadium, a site designed for athletics, not football.
We're now just 90 minutes away from the opportunity to play in the Premier League. It will be the culmination of many, many years of work to, first of all, save the club, keep the club alive, and then actually get the club to the highest possible level. So it'll be a massive, massive achievement for everybody connected to the city and to the football club.
And despite their home advantage, Middlesbrough are not underestimating Houghton's side.
Early in the season, Brighton went 19 games unbeaten, and a lot of people thought they were going to tail off when we beat them, but you don't go 19 games unbeaten if you're a poor team, and we always knew Brighton would be there or thereabouts at the end of the season, and it's going to be a good game.
But we know there's one simple task, that we've got to do well enough and we've got to get it right enough to go and win it.
It's as simple as that. And it's a huge day for Oxford United tomorrow as well, where the season's work will be settled in a derby match. Wycombe make the short trip up the M40, aiming to spoil the U's party. A victory will guarantee Oxford promotion to League One. Anything less and they'll be casting anxious glances to results elsewhere. Another day, another training session. It's the usual routine. For Oxford United, at the end of a long season, this is a defining weekend. The routine, though, remains the same.
We've been very successful in what we've done over 45 games, and we're reluctant to try and change that now for one game.
The fans who followed Oxford to Wembley for last month's trophy final will be celebrating as long as their side can match Bristol Rovers' result. A victory at the Kassam would certainly start a promotion party. The alternative route leads to the playoffs.
And honestly, no one's even mentioned it. Everyone's just real positive. Everyone's really looking forward to the game. We really, really believe that we're going to turn up on Saturday and we're going to win the game.
The atmosphere's going to be crazy, and their fans are going to be wanting an upset. Their players are going to want the upset as well. So, yeah, obviously we've got the hardest fixture, but it's in our hands. If we win, we go up.
Not only is Oxford's final game a decisive one, it's also a derby. In the Premier League, pressure showed when Spurs had 9 players cautioned as their title ambitions ended against Chelsea.
Discipline's going to be a big thing on Saturday. We speak to them about that all the time. It's easier to win a game with 11 men than it is 10 men. Probably even use the game against Spurs and Chelsea as a little reminder of what can happen if you lose your composure.
And the Kassam will be packed to witness whether it's destination party or playoffs. Well, one team definitely looking ahead to the playoffs are Portsmouth. Their result against Northampton at Fratton Park could determine whether Pompey play their first playoff match against Plymouth at home or away. Those matches will take place next Thursday and Sunday. In the Premier League, Bournemouth can enjoy the feeling of safety in the top flight as they host West Brom. Reading's championship season draws to a close at Blackburn, and League Two Crawley host Barnet. On Sunday, Saints are at Tottenham and League One Swindon play Shrewsbury. This weekend, the Thruxton race circuit in Andover hosts the UK's biggest motorsport series, the British Touring Car Championships. So far, 2016 has produced 6 different winning drivers from 6 different races. The Team GB rowers most likely to be representing their country at Rio are competing at the Euro Championships in Germany. Among those already through to Sunday's finals are the women's pair, Helen Glover and Heather Stanning. And staying on the water, Sir Ben Ainsley and his team are in New York for the latest America's Cup World Series event. The team are hoping to become the first British team to challenge for the trophy since 1964. And the first 3 races take place tomorrow.
Good luck to all, especially Brighton.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Now, tomorrow morning, the curtain rises on the 50th Brighton Festival.
Yes, over the next 3 weeks, more than 1,000 shows, exhibits and performances will attract audiences from across the world at both the festival and the Fringe.
Andy Dickinson's been finding out more.
They say all the world's a stage, and never does that seem more true than at the Brighton Festival. These allotments this year the setting for a unique production about William Shakespeare's strangest fan.
I came across this eccentric character called James Orchard Halliwell Phillips, who lived just over there by the woods in Hollingbury and was the world's greatest Shakespeare scholar. Then I came across this kind of amazing valley full of 300 sheds, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to kind of link the allotmenteers, the sheds, with Shakespeare and James Orchard Halliwell Phillips especially as it's the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. I thought this would be a great place to make a piece of immersive, site-specific theatre.
The theme for this year's festival is home, and among the multitude of pieces exploring that idea, two really stand out. One, a symphony for the city itself. The second, a film of the first festival found in someone's attic. That event featured new bands The Who and Cream. This year there's Laura Mvula, Beth Orton and an artwork based on Lou Reed's guitars. In many ways, much has changed.
This year is the 50th festival, after all. Brighton Festival started in 1967, and just marking that in and of itself is a fantastic occasion. And then on top of that, to have Laurie Anderson as our guest director, I think is a brilliant coup for the festival.
We'll be doing a concert for dogs, and I am so curious who's going to show up. I like to make a really big, fun, interesting playing field and not predict what people are going to get from it. It's so different for each person.
Then there's the Fringe, this year the largest ever, with a mind-boggling 930 shows playing in 170 different venues.
There is theatre, music, dance, comedy, circus work, spoken word, children's shows, music, literally, you name it, there's something for everyone here.
Well, it's exciting. I think Brighton comes into its own in May anyway, the sun's out. You've got the Children's Parade, it's opening night of the festival, and Brighton might get promoted that same day.
Celebrating 50 years on the edge with the London Symphony Orchestra, Michael Moore Pogo and Glengarry Glen Ross, to name 3 more in 1,000, the festival and Fringe run until June. All that's left is the applause. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Brighton.
Charming.
And let's give Simon a round of applause now, because Simon, we love this weather.
Yep, another warmest day of the year so far today. There'll
All
probably
around
be
the
another
world,
one
or just
tomorrow.
here?
No, just here.
Planet
London, 23.8,
Yes.
but in our region, have a look at this lovely picture. That was taken at RHS Wisley in Surrey. And that's where we got 23.4 today. Lovely picture from Les Adams. Beautiful sky this morning. 5 o'clock on the Cotswolds. Thank you to Mark Bentley for getting up early for that.
Sunset.
And here's another, sunrise actually.
Rise.
There's another lovely view. First thing this morning. Now it looks like the kind of thing I show as my satellite and radar, but this was actually taken by Tim Peake from the ISS. Yeah, sunny south coast where I grew up. He said, not that I ever really grew up, knew the feeling. But yesterday, have a look at these pictures from Bournemouth. Another hottest day of the year so far, and people are out enjoying the very fine weather in Bournemouth. You can see a handful of people on the beach there.
Oh, yeah,
some
brave.
of them even in T-shirts.
Wow.
Meanwhile, some of them in coats on the prom there, but a few younger folk enjoying the wetness and the warm weather, and I suspect there'll be a lot more of that to come over the weekend, because it's going to be hot and even hotter, Fred.
Hot and even hotter. He's really hot. Simon Barkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Well, this was the lovely Friday that Zoe woke up to this morning. Bit of high cloud, some hazy sunshine through the day. And as we head into tonight, that extra cloud means it shouldn't be quite so cold. Temperatures generally staying up into double figures. It's towards the west there might be an odd spot of drizzle, but for most of us a dry start tomorrow. And there'll be some bright or sunny spells. But there is a chance that as we go through the day, we could see a few showers developing, driven by an area of low pressure down towards the southwest. Now, the weather warning area for those showers is a bit further north than us, but we could just see to the north of the M4 in the Thames Valley area just 1 or 2 showers, and if one lands on you, could be a torrential downpour. But most of us are going to stay dry. It's going to be a lovely warm sunny day with highs of around 21, 22, maybe even 23 degrees. Tail end of the day is when we could see an odd shower developing towards the south coast, probably somewhere between Dorset and the Isle of Wight, and then through the evening the risk of a few more too, but they'll be gone by the time Sunday comes along. As for your high tide times, Southampton you can see 5 to midday, and then around 25 past 2 in the afternoon. And then Sunday, another lovely day. More in the way of sunshine to be had, a touch warmer too, before it all goes downhill next week.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather. Keeping a close eye on summer. The pollen count,
Sponsored by Ilogy Eye Drops.
Of course, there is a downside to lots of fine weather, high tree pollen levels, and yes, they will be high again tomorrow and on Sunday. But the good news is, as things turn a bit more unsettled into next week, they will start to slip.
Well, before we go, a last word, as it were, on the elections. We can cross live now to our political correspondent, Phil Hornby at Westminster. Phil, what do these results actually tell us? What do they mean?
Well, first of all, let me just bring you up to date on some late results that we missed, I think, in the last couple of minutes in the Police and Crime Commissioner elections in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight and in Surrey. The Conservatives have won. The Conservatives also won in Kent, in Sussex and in Essex, and one council result from earlier, Charwell Council, a Conservative hold. No surprise there. Now, as you would expect, the political parties are trying to put the best gloss on how they did yesterday, and I think for Labour and the Conservatives it's the same message really. It could have been a lot worse. Certainly if Labour hadn't won a couple of important councils in the south of England, there'd be a lot of pressure on Jeremy Corbyn tonight. And as for the Conservatives, well, they should have done worse in these elections, particularly when you look at the context. The party split from top to bottom over the EU, the shambles of the budget, the doctors' strike, the row over turning schools into academies. In fact, they're quite pleased with how they did. Let's hear from the two party leaders.
6 years into government, of course we don't get everything right. Of course we can make mistakes. Of course sometimes things go wrong. But people, I think, look at the big picture and they want us to go on delivering what we promised in our manifesto.
In the south, we held control of Crawley, we held control of Hastings, we held control of Southampton. I think there's an awful lot we can be quietly pleased about, but clearly there's a long way to go.
Phil, the elections might be over, but the campaigning goes on.
Yeah, normally politicians would put their feet up this weekend, but no, because the EU referendum campaign, which already seems to have been going on for a long time, will really get ratcheted up next week. There's 7 weeks to go.
Phil, lastly, a major U-turn by the government this afternoon. Nice bit of timing this, not to force all schools to become academies.
Yeah, good day to bury embarrassing news, this one, wasn't it, Fred? Out of the blue, they slipped out this announcement. It's been a very unpopular policy among Tory MPs, among head teachers, among many parents. Now, schools that are outstanding or good will not be forced to become academies, and one head teacher we spoke to is delighted.
It was a silly idea that wasn't thought out. No one had spoken to the schools. Again, a silly idea that basically has been shown for what it is, and I'm glad it's gone. They had to change because it was a silly decision in the first place.
So maybe the politicians will put their feet up for a day or two. They'll go home this weekend to reflect on these election results and maybe to lick their wounds. But from Monday, it will be full steam ahead for the EU referendum campaign. I suspect we'll never have seen anything quite like it. And I'll be standing here giving you the result 7 weeks tonight.
Full steam ahead for you, Phil, but for now, thanks very much.
And in just a moment, we have the ITV Evening News with Alistair Stewart and Charlene White.
And now, though, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Enjoy the weekend, stay safe, don't forget the sun cream. Take care, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.